Because I believe there was a little bit of, wait, what is this? Saw little pock marks in the sand there, so it looks like a civet from last night. I believe in Twitter earlier, a couple of you were talking about something I think about a lot, especially when I'm out here, and that is my family. Just teasing a bit, I know some of you are talking about my son, and you were wondering what his name is. Ragnangala. It's a bit of a, we decided to give him a big boy name. It's a double barrel name at that as well. And Ragnar is after the first Viking, the Viking that crossed the sea to explore gently into England. And then Ngala, son's name. So that's how we ended up with Ragnar Ngala. And he's now almost 7 months old. He is about halfway to 7 months, just over 6.5 months old. So similar age to Shadow's youngster. But then at the same time, Jack, HD's son, is almost the same age, but just in years. I think Jack, if I remember correctly, is 8 years old now. I just thought I'd throw that into the mix for you as well. Okay, we all have to think leopard. Sort of talking about leopard, so it's an easy jump. There's our hyena tracks. We are going to be getting into what's called the Marakeni Donga. I just explained to you what a donga is, that deep sort of riverbed system. And the Marakeni Donga is a beautiful drive up the riverbed. It's a lovely scenic experience. But always when I drive there, I feel like we're going to see a leopard at any second, because you've got these big jackalberries and white sand and lush bush on the right. Perfect habitat for leopard. So think leopard, because maybe we see leopard. Oh, 5 o'clock, we've got an hour of drive left. And I think after that, after the Marakeni Scenic Adventure Experience, which is coming up in just a few seconds, we will be heading back towards where we saw Q earlier and seeing what's happening there, closer to sunset. See if he's going to keep that food or is he going to lose it. But let's enjoy the riverbed first. Getting a nice sense here of what a riverbed is, these drainage line systems we talk about. Beautiful. Connie from Canada. Got a nice ring to it. Connie, great question, especially for those of you that haven't been on many safaris or drives with us. Connie's just wondering, how did the acceptance of these vehicles by the animals, how was that achieved? So it's just such a beautiful tree, that. I see trees like that and I sort of wish I was a leopard, just so I could quickly run up that trunk and go sit on that branch, and you could see what it would look like, because that would be stunning. That's a jackalberry, also referred to as an ebony sometimes. Now I can tell you for a fact that over the last 100 or so years, probably older than that, probably 200 or 300 years old, this tree, there has been many leopards up in that tree. So just because there isn't one right at this moment, doesn't mean that we can't imagine one up there. Connie, in terms of how the animals got used to the vehicles, it's just a matter of habituation. That's the term. It's called habituation. You habituate something to something, and that's just through exposure. So as soon as these animals learned that, listen, these vehicles aren't going to bother us or chase us or drive over us or steal our food or harm our babies, then then they relaxed. And the more relaxed the vehicles were with them, and the more they relaxed, and the more relaxed the vehicles became, and then that continues on and on and on until you get to a stage where the animals go on with totally normal behavior, total natural behavior when the vehicles are around. And that's great, because you don't want to only be able to get close to animals. That's great. Just to be able to get close and see them, that's one thing. But as I was saying, you don't only get close, but the animals continue with their natural behavior. Like take that leopard for instance. We were sitting 8 or 10 feet away from him, but he was still eating his food the same as usual. He was still doing everything the same, even or compared to if we weren't there. So the behavior you see is more and more the natural behavior, unaffected by our presence. And that is just gold. Here's another massive tree. In fact, I've showed you this one before. I haven't done it in quite a while. Just to give you a scale, it's often difficult to judge the size of some of these trees. I'm just going to quickly stand in front of it so you can see what it looks like. Well guys, I hope that gave you at least some indication of the size of some of these trees. And as I said, beautiful trees, these jackalberries. Always a bit nervous, or unnerving maybe is the right word, when you stick your head into a cavity like that, because it actually goes up into the tree. And no doubt, again, as I said, that tree further back, over the years, there would have been thousands of leopards that have been, or hundreds of leopards at least, spending time up in that tree. And the same with this one, a hollow like that, there would have been many different animals, some of them maybe without legs and feet, that make a home there, but nothing in there. Right, so one of the radio channels there, let me just turn that down. We're using handhelds at the moment. There was a small change in the Djuma radios. Okay, off we go. Let's finish the Marikeni Donga Drive. Love this time of day. It's really cooled down now as well, so it's that perfect temperature. It's not just nice and cool, it's almost like the texture of the wind changes. You can feel it in your skin. It's friendly, it's caressing, it's welcoming. And that's what you feel like when the evening is approaching. Just the prospect of what you might see. The smells are great. Just back there we can smell a potato bush. The potato bush is a little shrub. I'll show you one now. Of course, now it's going to take me a little while. I'll show you one shortly. And it smells like it's this bush in front. There's one. Just this shrubbery, that stuff there, that's a potato bush. Just little round leaves on it. There's obviously grass there as well, so it's not the grass, it's the round leaf plants in between the grass. And it's called a potato bush. I'm sure many of you can guess. One of two reasons. Either it has potatoes underground or it smells like potatoes. In this case, it's the latter. It smells just like boiling potatoes, and so much so that it's happened to me many times, even this time around a few times. You're on your way back to camp at night, you drive through a dip and you smell the potato bush and you haven't maybe eaten as much lunch as you should have. Your stomach literally rumbles because it makes you hungry to smell it. That's how close the smell is to real potatoes. There's a strong, smells like musk. Lovely smell as well, and that's from blanked there for a second, from a civet. Must have scent marked around there somewhere last night. eyes on the road. Busy checking something on my radio there. Hello Sandy, well spotted. You're just asking about those nests earlier on that windmill that we drove past. And yes, those nests, as far as I remember, were from one of the small five. We discussed the small five this morning on Game Drive when we were looking at the antlion tracks. And that should actually be enough of a clue for you to know exactly what that's from. Because we have a giraffe in the road. Sandy, I will give you the answer just now, but if you want to figure out that little clue, in the small five, let me just make sure. Yes, in the small five, there's only one kind of bird species. Obviously, those nests would be from a bird. And that's your answer. Let's get a few answers from everyone that could figure out that little riddle. The nests in the windmill are from one of the small five. And it can only be one. Which one is it? Let us know. Hashtag Safari Live if you want to tweet it. This is a giraffe. I think I've mentioned that already, and I'm sure we all know that. But is this a male giraffe or a female giraffe? And we're having the exact or the perfect view to figure that out. And that's by looking at the tops of those horns, those hard, it's actually skin on top of the horn, but it's bold skin. No hair growing there. And that tells us it's a male giraffe. Female giraffe, the cows, which is the way to call them, they've got little clusters of hair right to the very tip of the horn, and also their horns are not quite as thick. Secondly, if you look carefully between the ears, lower down from those horns, of course now it's behind the twigs, but I'm sure you could see it earlier, there's quite a sort of knobbly horns there as well. It's like a second, it's not really full horns, but call it, you know, extra growth on the skull. And as they get older, these bulls gets bigger, but also on the front of the skull, on the forehead, you can sometimes have more bone growth, even to the point that it sometimes even looks like another one or two horns growing on the front of the skull, giving it more weight, making it stronger, making the bull a potentially better fighter. And this is actually the first giraffe that I've seen since we've been back.
Yeah.
Yeah, thinking back, I know H saw one, Hayden saw one a couple of days ago. He saw one big bull giraffe apparently as well, but we haven't been seeing too many of them. This guy's in great condition though. Very, very healthy. Beautiful as well. Amazing animals. Big guy. He'd be close to 4 meters tall. That's about, what would that be? 25, 28 foot from his toe to the horn tip. Go a bit forward quickly. It's interesting what he's eating at the moment. It's not something that they eat loads of. It's something that me and you can't eat. We spoke about it earlier, and we had that question about the digestive systems. Leopard and lion, don't they get sick from eating old meat or rotten meat? Now, what this giraffe is eating at the moment, it's a tree called a tambuti, and it's part of the euphorbia family, which is all these plants that has this poisonous milky latex in the leaves and the bark. And if you or I were to eat, probably not even that much, if we ate a handful of these leaves, I mean, it wouldn't taste good and it would burn your mouth, so you'd know all about it. But if you were to eat about a handful of those leaves, you'd be in some serious problems or trouble. You will get severe, actually all kinds of severe things, but stomach ache, diarrhea, vomiting probably, massive dehydration. This is not something we'd want to eat. But then again, we're not giraffes. It is also considered sometimes that animals that do browse in these leaves, and as I said, this is not a staple diet. This is not what the giraffe eats every day, this specific type of leaf. But kudus, black rhino, they also eat this. And it has been suggested that maybe it's to help with internal parasites a little bit. Help clean the stomach. Impala that ran away there, but that was definitely not an impala, and we might not get the answer because it's very, very thick here, but pretty sure it was another giraffe. So that's great. Always something new, even if you've done this 1,000 times, even if you've done it 10,000 times, always something new to experience. There's another giraffe. We're not going to look at it much, we can't see much of it, but just to show you, it's a different giraffe from the one we saw earlier. Oh, are we going to see that? Right, there's a tiny little window. It looks like a female perhaps. Just through, you see it? So just,
there.
Yeah, just through those. There, just in the back, you can't even see the giraffe, you can just see the skin, the coat. Good camouflage as well, maybe not quite as good as a leopard, but then again, when you're 4 meters tall. What? Let me just do my math again. I said earlier 4 meters, sorry guys, remember that feet and inches is not really what I work in. 2 meters is about 7 foot. Oh, I think I said 28 foot. That would be a cool giraffe. Let me just correct myself there. So we're working in about 7 foot for 2 meters. So a 4 meter giraffe, a big giraffe, would be about 14 feet. That's more like it. A 28 foot giraffe would be remarkable. It would be twice the height of the tallest giraffe recorded before. So sorry for that miscalculation there. As I said, it's a bit like English sometimes, which is a second language. Yeah. The same goes for the non-metric system. I have to convert it in my head. Let's go have a look at Red Dam. It's just up ahead. Well, so I know I'm excited about the water, but there's nothing here at the moment. But trust me, any place with water over the next couple of weeks and months will deliver little gems when you get there. We've just left that giraffe further back in the riverbed. There's some turtle doves coming for a drink, and I am very excited about a number of things this afternoon. Apart from the great leopard we saw and that we're going to try and see again just now, if not ourselves, HD will go back there if he can get in. But this is really good news for me. I didn't expect there to be water here. When we were here November, December, this waterhole was almost empty. There was a little pool of water just sort of in the middle there, and not great to drink from. But obviously this last late rains we had has filled this up, and I'm excited also about the fact that for the next weeks and months going on after the weekends things, there's some new places to explore. Brent hasn't seen this. Scott, I think, has seen this, but not often because we didn't drive here for quite a while. And now we've got the technical ability to bring you along, even down into all this drainage lines that I drove this afternoon. We've expanded the footprint that we can show you. Before we move on, I am keen to keep going, but we have that magic time of the day busy happening here to the left, and I think that's quite a nice view actually. Sunset time in the bush. Sunset time anywhere is beautiful, but sunset time in the bush is extra special. This is when the nocturnal animals start getting active. The birds are calling, you can hear the francolin there in the background. All the diurnal animals are slowing down, the nocturnal animals are getting active, so it is a time of day when everything's out and about. Normally cools down a little bit, so if it was a hot day, you get respite from the heat. And things that an hour or two seemed impossible suddenly seem very possible again. So we love this time of day. Beautiful acacia tree as well. That looks like a, what is that, a knobthorn. One of the acacias. Skyline against the sunset. Fresh buffalo dung here from earlier today, so the buff have been here. But as I said, might not be there now. But you're going to see some nice things at this waterhole. One of the things you might see at this waterhole is Shadow. This is one of the places she hangs out in. In fact, the last time we were here, the only other time I've seen Shadow since, you know, she was a cub with Karula, was in this little drainage line, the system that feeds this water. And Brian, you were on camera with that sighting. But we just saw like a patch of the leopard.
Yes.
It was just up ahead. We never even saw the leopard. I mean, we saw maybe that much of her skin. She was in this deep dip. We knew the cub was there from the guys that found her earlier in the day, but never got to see the cub. So I've only seen Shadow in the last many years. I've only seen it twice. Once that big a patch of skin, and then obviously the other day, which was stunning. Yo, the view we had on, what day was it? My days blur into each other. I think it was Sunday.
Sunday.
Beautiful, beautiful view of both Shadow and that young cub of hers, 7-8 months old now, on a tree, on a branch of a marula that had been pushed over by elephants. It was a magic sighting. HT also got to have a look, which was very good. So what I'm sort of getting at is one of the very likely places where we might see Shadow, maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day, but certainly over the next few weeks and months, is that waterhole behind us there, Red Dam. Put it in the back of your mind, because at some stage you're going to see some magic there. Well, the other thing about this time of day is it's a great time to chat. So if you have anything to ask or to mention, or, you know, I'm surprised someone didn't go and say, Peter, you just said a giraffe can be 25 or 28 foot tall. Have you done your math right? Maybe you're just all too polite. Thank you very much. I do appreciate it. I'm just glad I caught myself there. It would have been quite funny. Fantastic, guys. Thanks for the feedback on that giraffe. Ria and Elaine, and the third name unfortunately was just breaking up a little bit, but you guys all said that's a male giraffe. Anna Marie, great IDing. Giraffe, actually the easiest way to ID them always is just the skull and the head. I mean, obviously there's other bits and pieces as well. It's sort of the important bits and pieces. But with giraffe, the easiest way is always the skull. And then of course just the size. That guy was a big bull. Female giraffe don't grow to that size.
Sir? Good, thanks, mate. So there's our boy. And he's certainly made a mark on that carcass from earlier when Pete found him. It was one of those situations where he just made the kill and had opened up the carcass and ate as much as he could, but now he's really tucking into that. I'm amazed that there's no hyena here yet. It's quite incredible. Ooh, I love this cat. This is one spectacular cat. Just moving out of the way for Ephraim to get by. So we just let people move around the site and get to view the animal nicely. I think we can probably just now reposition ourselves back. Got a question from Tula and Annie, wondering how long we think it might be before the hyena and lion, or lion, and or both, find Q in this meal. It's a really hard one to answer, Tula and Annie, but you know what? It's just one of those luck of the draw things. I mean, if the wind's in his favour and it's blowing in a direction that there's no predators or scavengers about, he might have a little bit more time up his sleeve. The interesting thing about this is that that female kudu that he killed is probably about, well, I'd be saying about 4 times his body weight. Now, he would really struggle to get that anywhere else but where it is. He wouldn't be able to get that up a tree. It's just too big an animal. But what's incredible that he has the skill of this age and this size leopard. He's not fully grown yet to pull down an animal that size. It's quite incredible. Thank you so much for your question. So you might hear us shuffling about a little bit, and we're just sort of rearranging things in the vehicle to get prepared for. Sorry, he just stood up. Liam was just fixing something in the back of the vehicle, and he stood up and changed position. So that's why we had that little shot there. So the point of it is that we're sitting with him at the moment. No predators around at this point, but anything could happen. Anything could happen any minute. Got a great question from Paul in Indiana, and Paul, you're asking whether we have a smell of carrion already, like the smell that a carcass emits. I absolutely tell you can, Paul. It's not a bad smell. It's just a smell of fresh meat, really. We'd pulled up before, and as we pulled up, I definitely smelt it just as we came in on that track, coming up to the carcass. Not a bad smell at all. Sometimes you will smell the stomach contents or something like that, but it's not offensive at this point, that's for sure. But I definitely smelt it, Paul. So thanks very much for your question. I just got a question from John in Connecticut, and John wants to know, John's thinking it's getting dark, and you're right, John, it is. The light has dropped, the sun has gone below the horizon, and it will be getting dark soon. And your question is, doesn't he want to get that kill up a tree and get it out of the way? Well, there's two things that he's got going against him at the moment, John. It's the animal that he killed, as I think I touched on before, is actually about 3 times his body weight, potentially 4 times his body weight, and he wouldn't actually be able to take that up a tree. The second problem he has is that there aren't any trees around here that he could haul it up into. They're not tall enough. There's one I can see off in the distance, about 150, maybe 300, 400 feet away, but he wouldn't drag it across there. So I think what he's doing, and this is very interesting behaviour, that he's not stashing the food, he's gorging himself as much as he can possibly eat, because he knows that there's a potential of those predators, those other scavengers slash predators coming around tonight, and he could lose the whole thing. Thanks so much for your question, John. I can't believe I'm sitting with this leopard again in less than 3, 4, 5 days. I can't remember. He's just the most coolest cat. He is just an absolute joy to be around, this cat. And every time you watch him, you see him getting bigger, and he's getting more handsome. He's just a cool looking animal. If we do get a chance to see that pattern or those markings down right at the base of his spine before he meets his tail, Brent and I call it the landing strip. It's some beautiful markings, but we just can't see them at the moment until you direct. Well, you can get them. That's kind of it. Yeah, that's kind of it, Liam. Fantastic, mate. They're actually equilateral on both sides. Maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of those rosettes nearly match on either side of his spinal column there. And that's one of the markings that I pick up on cue. Always keeping his eyes open for exactly what we're talking about just then. Potential predators coming up. So he's had a bit of a meal. He's a little bit tuckered out. Bit puffed from all that eating. Look at the size of that belly. Keeping his eyes peeled and very alert. It could be another predator arriving any second. He's got his eyes over there. That glance, that stare, that gaze, that's leopard. That's what we love. Okay, he's comfortable. He's just looking around. He caught something. I'm just looking down there as well, and to see if I can see anything. But you potentially will have hyena skulking around at some point. He's definitely been working out, eating all that food. He's puffed. And now he'll probably go into that ritualistic cleaning once he gets a handle on what's going on around him. start to lick his paws and clean himself up a little bit, give himself a bit of a bath. Got a really great question from Sam in Ohio. We're just about to have a vehicle start, Sam, so I'll just let that happen and I'll come to your question. I'm just going to see how this vehicle can get out of here. I'm just keeping a handle on that, so please excuse me, Sam. I'm coming back to you, but I'm just looking at the driver guide and hoping he's okay and I'm not in his way, and I think I'm fine. So Sam, your question is quite an interesting one, and I want to get to it, but I just want the vehicle to pass before I do that, if that's okay. We're just going to reposition our vehicle, folks, just to let this vehicle out properly. So just excuse me, Sam, I'm coming back to you. Thanks, Goodwill. Cheers, guys. Have a great night. Reposition. He's just walking off over there, and whilst he's walking off, I'll answer your question, Sam. And your question was, would bits of non-edible material like sand and sticks and bark and things get attached to the carcass, and would he consume that? Well, the answer to that is yes, and actually that has sometimes a benefit for some animals, because that roughage and those other the dirt and the sand can also help with the digestion, and it might be accidental, but it would have no effect on him whatsoever. He is normally eating from the inside out, so it would be rare that he would consume massive amounts of non-edible material, and it would be negligible really, Sam, in his diet. But great question, thanks for being on board with us today. You know, he's just sort of walked over quite a way there. I'm going to let him settle for a second, because he has had a big meal, and then I'm going to try and get in there somehow. Excuse me, please. Okay, we can see him, and I'm going to try and just see if I can get a bit closer to him, and then we can just settle down and go to close with him. So just bear with me, folks, for a second. A little bit of negotiation here. We're not going to go too close and disturb him, of course. We're just going to get close enough. But Q is such a beautiful animal, and he's so habituated to our vehicles. It's not an issue, I assure you. What do you reckon, Van? Can you see anything better up that way, mate? Oh, I can see him still. He's just over there. So folks, all we're doing is renegotiating our sort of position and making sure that we can still see him properly. He's just there, mate. I'm going to go in this way. Let's see if I can squeeze through. Now, a lot of these little branches that we go over sound a lot worse than they are, I promise you. They just go underneath the vehicle and spring back up. I can certainly smell the carcass now. Yeah, I can smell it now. It smells like, well, how do I put this politely? Interesting. He's definitely opened up the stomach cavity accidentally. It's all right, my boy. Okay, buddy. Sounds a lot worse than it is, folks, I promise you. It's just the sides of the branches on the vehicle. How's that for you, Liam? There's our boy. A little bit of grass in the way, but hey ho, we'll survive. And we'll watch this ritualistic bathing now. So we'll just watch it just go a little bit. I could roll a bit forward, but I think I'm going to get that stick in the way. So we're just going to watch him do his little bathing ceremony, cleaning up his pores, keeping himself in perfect, magnificent condition. So Sam, I hope I answered your question properly. There would be a negligible amount of foreign matter, foreign material on the carcass, and it would not be detrimental to his system at all. If anything, potentially aid in digestion or moving it through, but it's not an issue at all. For any of you that have got cats out there, I think you've probably seen this before with your cats. I've got a lovely question from Tina in Houston, and it's a great question actually, because he might not be able to put his kill up a tree, but Tina, your question is, does he have a tree that he can get up in himself to escape hyena or lion or wild dog for that matter? And the answer to that is yes. Just behind him, VM, if you were just to widen that shot a little bit and just go out up to the right, about sort of 1 o'clock for you. There's a tree there. See that, folks? That tree there's I think that's a perfect leopard tree. I'd go up that if I was getting chased by a hyena. That's a cracker. Look at those horizontal branches. But he'd be safe up there, that's for sure. Yeah, so there is a couple around, but he would never be able to haul this carcass up there. He might eventually get a piece of it off, I'm not sure. He might try and tear a leg or something like that and get that up there, so that is a possibility. He's definitely made a mark on this carcass, so let's see what happens there. But this is a work in progress for him, a definite work in progress, and we're so lucky to be with him. I read in a book once, and it was a line I'll never forget, and it was this one sentence it hit me about the leopard, and it said, the leopard is the embodiment of power, beauty, and feline strength, or something along those lines anyway, but it's so true. Yeah, I think it was the embodiment of feline beauty, power, and strength. That's what it was, and I'll never forget that, because that is for me what a leopard is. Have a look at that. Nice question from Brian in Toronto about what I just mentioned about potentially taking off a limb and taking that up a tree. Brian, he potentially would do that. Your question is, could he tear off a limb and take it up a tree? Well, there's definitely a possibility. If he chewed through one of the hind quarters or the hip bones or something like that, he could take that up. But I just don't think he's got the energy at the moment. He's plumb tuckered out there. He's really just trying to cool down from that big eating extravaganza. We all know what it feels like after a big Sunday roast. Well, I tell you what, animals go through the same things, particularly big predators. When they've had a big feed, they just end up rolling over and try to digest their food. You see it with lions a lot. After a big meal, they lie down with these massive bellies and they just sleep and sleep and sleep. Folks, I'm just going to make a call to radios that I'm on this leopard queue, and if anyone wants to come and join, they're welcome. So please excuse me for a second. All radios on lock, on Ingwe, on Philemon's Cutline, one vehicle only, animal static. Feel free to join. I might just put a little bit of wash over him now. Now I just want to slowly do this, so bear with me folks. You might just hear a little bit of rustling around and taking handbrakes off and things so I can move across the other side of the vehicle. I just want to turn one of these lights away from him at the moment, and then I'm going to just gently wash it over him, so I don't want to startle him. He'd be absolutely fine with it, but I think it's just out of respect more than anything. So we'll just turn this light on now, and I'm just going to turn it around so there's just a little wash of light over him. It just improves our pictures, and it certainly doesn't hurt him. He's actually turned his back to us, which is even better for the light. Yeah, he is so completely tired from that meal. So folks, what you can hear at the moment is our game drive channel. We've got a situation where we're changing radios at the moment, and we're using handhelds which we don't have earpieces for, so we've just got them on, and you might hear a little bit of chatter like that. I think some of you find it very, very interesting, because we've had loads and loads of emails and tweets I've had saying, wish we could hear the game drive channel. So you do hear loads and loads of chit-chat about where's this animal, I'm on this animal, and that sort of thing. But the reason why we have it in our ear is just because it makes it's quite confusing to listen to if you're listening to someone speak as well. But anyway, if you hear that little that little beep beep like that, that's someone talking. I've got the radio turned right down now. Heidi in Burlington. Hi Heidi, and welcome to you. And you've just joined us where we're sitting here with this beautiful, well, you haven't just joined us, you've been watching, I do apologise. You're watching us now with this fantastic cat, and your question is, do you think Djuma, his brother, would potentially come around and try and take something? It's not impossible, that's for sure, but unlikely. They have a tendency to, majority of the time, avoid each other, majority of the time. You've obviously seen on Wild Safari Live sometimes where some of the individuals have met up, and I'm just trying to rack my brain on who it was, because I remember watching it live in London at the time, and I was absolutely amazed that they were together. I'm not sure if it was Karula and Djuma or who it was, but you know, you'll occasionally get the leopards meeting up. The interesting thing about this situation is Karula has still got these two boys of hers sort of crossing over her home range and sort of territorial areas that she's tolerating. When her cubs, if she is pregnant, who knows, I don't know, comes, that may all change. But there's some really sort of interesting behaviours going on at the moment, and the whole process, the whole territorial change is about to occur with all these different leopards and the concentration. But we're going to touch more about all of that on the weekend, on the talks on Saturday and Sunday night on the fireside chats. We don't know, there's loads of stuff to talk about, but we'll probably leave it till then, I'd say. But highly unlikely that we see him tonight, but it is not impossible. Thanks so much for your question. So folks, we're going to just cross across to Pete and say goodnight to him, and then I'll come back and say farewell to you as well. So let's cross over to Pete and see what he's up to, and we'll be right back.
Well, welcome back this side, and brilliant leopard viewing. Nice to see him feeding again. And also good to know that so far, at least, touch wood, the food hasn't been stolen. So we know that Q's got a couple of good feeding sessions in, his belly is full, so everything he keeps from now on is just a bonus. We've been driving around Impala Plain, Sandy Patch, more sort of towards the western part of Djuma, at beautiful female leopard tracks. I'm guessing Karula, up and down, they're quite active. We didn't find anything further. I know Brent and them were looking earlier as well. Somewhere around there, so certainly, I mean, still now, it's not impossible you bump into her, but I think for the morning, something to look forward to. I would love to see Karula at least once, if not more, but one good view of her before the weekend, or over the weekend, would be even better. On Mother's Day would be great. Imagine seeing Karula on Mother's Day. I'd love that. In fact, we're going to talk about Karula on Mother's Day a little bit, because she's such a great mother with such a great history in this place. But that's for tomorrow, that's for the next drives. For now, I'm going to say good night. Unless there's any questions still. Sorry, I think we might have had one question that was mentioned earlier. Let's just see who's coming along here. Hello. How's it going? Right. Cheers, guys. Have a nice evening. Yeah, I was there earlier. All right, guys. Thanks, man. Cheers. Okay. Yeah, straight. Bye-bye. Cheers. Sorry, guys. It's some of the landowners. Just to say hello to them. Hello, John. From Scotland. I don't have a great Scottish accent. I wish I did. It's one of the great accents. But John is just asking, how far would Djuma and Q move out when they go and find their own new territories? In other words, how far would they move away? John, and that's quite a wide spectrum answer. They could move away a few kilometers until they find an area that they can hang around in for a while, or they could move many kilometers. So they could move 1 or 2 miles, or they could move 30, 40, 50, 60 miles, further even than that. But it depends on, it's more important to understand why they would move. In other words, at the moment, they're staying almost longer than what is typical for male leopards to stay in their mother's territory. They're almost 2.5 years old. But it's not unusual. I mean, normally around 2 years old, they start moving off. So they're being tolerated a little bit longer by their mother, but especially by the father, the dominant male in this area. And the fact that it is still their father plays a big role. Mvula is the male here. If this was, let's say a year ago, a new male moved in here, that would have put much more pressure on them. So this is in their benefit as well, and it's good. It gives them some extra time to really get big and strong before they move away. But when they move here, so let's say 2 to 3 years old is when the male moves. He's not going to just take over a new area somewhere. He's not going to become dominant suddenly. He's going to have to find a new area first, and that normally happens only at about 4 years old, but normally around 5 years, when they're big enough and mature enough to successfully compete for their own territory. So when that happens, they can set up a new area. Now that could be by killing one male in a fight, which is possible, but more often than not, it's just creating a little breathing space. So maybe they have a fight with the male and they don't necessarily kill him and take over the whole area. They might just fight with him or compete a bit and just squeeze him out a little bit. Some of these leopards have got very large areas, the males. We're talking 10, 12, 15,000 acres, even more, 10, 12, 15,000 hectares, so we times about 3. So let's say anything from 20 to 40, 50,000 acres that they can move through. So it's more about just sort of creating a bit of, like moving your shoulders like this, just creating a little bit of space around him and pushing out another male and creating an area, or maybe even killing another male, and then only will they be dominant males. So from age 2, 3 maybe, when they leave the mother's home range or territory, until about 4 or 5. So at least for 1 to 3 years, anywhere in that time frame, they are nomads, and in that time they've got to avoid other big males and sort of just move around quietly until they're big enough to compete for their own area. Right, from my side, we've got about 10 minutes left of the game drive, so I know that you want to go back to those leopard. That's what I would want to do. I'm not going to keep you too much longer. You can go and join HT for the last part of the evening. Maybe something happens, we still don't know. Hyenas could arrive there any second. Lots of things could happen. Tomorrow morning, lots to look forward to. More leopards, see what's going on with Q's kill, see if Karula maybe pops out, and also just all the new surprises that goes along with a new day. So for now, we're going to say goodbye. Brian, thank you very much. Good job on camera. The 2 lovely ladies back in control room. It was an awesome drive. And for myself, Peter Pretorius, thanks so much for joining us. We will see you back here again, alive and wild, out in Africa. So see you in the morning. Bye-bye.
So he hasn't done much since we left, crossed over to Peter, folks. He's just laid down. He looked up a couple of times. We thought there might have been hyena coming through. Who knows what this stage could unfold tonight. It could be anything from a dramatic time for him and retreating, or it could be him laying here and having another big feast tomorrow or later on during the night, but we will never know until tomorrow morning. And I just wanted to answer a few more questions before we go, and we've got about 8 minutes to go, but he's asleep there in the grass. We've got a really good question from Sean. I have to say, Sean, this did cross my mind as well, mate. So thank you so much for your question on Twitter. Sean's asked, am I surprised that the hyenas haven't shown up yet? I'm really surprised, Sean, seeing as at the bottom of the hill, like probably 500 metres away from here is a hyena den. So I'm really surprised, Sean, but I think it's only a matter of time. And we're just having a look with the light at the moment around. Hyenas are very, very quiet as well. They move silently, so they could turn up right behind us, and before we know it, they're actually on the carcass. But Q would definitely give us a signal for that, because he would become very alert at that situation. But great question, Sean, and thank you very much. Yes, it has crossed my mind several times during this encounter. And we will see, mate. And tomorrow morning will be a much sort of give more clarification on that, and we'll definitely pick up on that. Thanks so much. I didn't quite get what your little man's name is. Oh, is it Jackson? It's Jackson. Yes, Jackson. How are you, buddy? I can't believe you're watching that all the way from big, beautiful Texas, and here we are in Africa, my friend. And you've asked a fantastic question, my boy. Do leopards all have the same number of spots? Well, no, they don't, mate. It's a little bit like if you look down at your finger right now, Mummy will show you, you can look down at your finger and you've got something called a fingerprint, and everyone's got a different fingerprint. Your mummy's got a different fingerprint, your daddy, everyone's got different fingerprints, and all your friends have got different fingerprints. Well, leopards are exactly the same. They've all got different coat patterns or markings. What a great question from a 4-year-old boy, Jackson. You are very, very smart, my boy. Thank you very much for that, mate, and thanks so much for watching Wild Safari Live. And keep watching, buddy. Great to have you on board, matey, and thanks so much to your mum. John is asking a question from Connecticut, and John, your question is, how long will this carcass potentially last? You can probably hear some noise in the background, folks. Coming. John, how long will it last? Goodness, it's one of those sayings, how long's a piece of... Question is, how long will this carcass potentially last? You can probably hear some noise in the background, folks. Coming. John, how long will it last?